Deepa. Look at you, my friend. Deepa, Deepa, the seats are reserved. You can go sit up there too if you want. Perfect. Hello. I think it's coming in and out. Oh. All right, guys, are we ready? I love that, Nalini. I don't know if it worked or not, but we'll try it again. All right, guys, are we ready? Yes. Perfect. Can we get a second yes on this? Yay. Thank you, guys. Erica, do we have everybody inside now? Okay, good. All right, Jeff and Erica, you let me know if I'm running over or if you're missing some people, all right? Perfect, guys. Okay, good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing today? Are we caffeinated enough? Please help yourself. There's plenty of caffeine, plenty of water. Let's hydrate ourselves. Let's keep this energy going. So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for taking the time from your very, very busy schedule, not to mention Saturday, to come and be here with us in making this happen. So usually we wait for the thank yous at the end, but I'd like to start with a thank you in the beginning for that reason and that reason alone. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So my name is Mandeep Kaur, and I'm a board member with Arogya World and also the co-chair. So really a warm welcome to all of you to our Arogya World first annual scientific symposium. Maybe I need a sign that says applause or ah. We'll work on it. By the second symposium, we will do that. At Arogya World, our mission is simple yet urgent to change the course of chronic disease. When we think about diabetes and heart disease, it's not just health crisis. These are societal crises. But we all know as fellow physicians, but also health advocates and wellness advocates in this room today, that it's preventable. Especially when we talk about the South Asian communities, the odds are stacked against us. As we are higher on that radar for health disease and diabetes, and it sometimes hits hardest to our families as well who are not prepared for it. But the future is inevitable. For over 15 years now, I know Nalini, our co-founder and the co-chair for this session as well, and for Arogya World, we have worked really, really, really hard to prevent diabetes before it starts through science-based, culturally and age-appropriate programs that meet where they live, learn, and work. We have reached nearly 30 million people in India, and now bringing this tested prevention work to the US with a focus on youth, high-risk families, and lifestyle changes. So today we have gathered the brightest minds to share smarter data, bolder strategies, scalable lifestyle interventions, and over the course of the symposium, we will explore groundbreaking workplace wellness programs, community education models, digital health tools designed to meet people exactly where they are, MASALA Study, and why philanthropy has a pivotal role to help change the course of non-communicable diseases. We are not just here to talk about stats. We are here to spark measurable, lifelong behavioral change. So thank you for bringing your expertise, your passion, your commitment, your inquisitive minds, that's important, right? To this vital global fight. Let us collaborate, innovate, build a healthier, disease-free tomorrow together. So are we ready? Perfect. All right, let's get started. Without further ado, let me introduce your moderator, our moderator for the symposium, Dr. Rachana Rekhi. Dr. Rachana Rekhi is a board-certified pediatrician and physician certified in lifestyle medicine. Her work centers with a focus on how nutrition, behavior, and early life factors influence long-term metabolic health. She is particularly interested in helping patients and families turn evidence-based guidance into sustainable daily practices. She previously co-hosted podcasts with her children, who are here today, Maya and Neil, called Wellness Visits. All right, we can clap. We can clap. Don't shy from clapping applause. Let's do that, right? where they explore the pillars of lifestyle medicine in engaging and accessible way. Neil is also working on an app called Blue Quest to gamify health to make children and their families healthier together. Not future entrepreneur, but today, right? You're a present one. She brings a clinical prevention-oriented perspective to today's discussion on diabetes and metabolic health. So please welcome our moderator, Dr. Rachana Rekhi. Thank you, Rachana.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really, really excited about this. This is like a rock star group of speakers and presenters and panelists. So I'm really, really excited. I just want to take you through what the day is going to look like. So we're going to start with Dr. Alka Kanaya, who was the PI for the MASALA study. We're going to have a panelist discussion with Dr. Dash from Sathe, Dr. Wagle from San Jose State, and Anita Sathe from the South Asian Heart Center. Then we're going to hear from Dr. Christopher Gardner, who will be speaking on food as medicine. Dr. Michael Schneider will be talking to us about precision health. Dr. Deepa Senidhi was going to discuss lifestyle medicine and GLP-1 medications. Then we're going to have a fireside discussion with Dr. Nalini Saligram and Seema Srivastava. And then finally, we'll close out the day with Dr. Kashmira Date, who's also an Arogya World Board Member. So I want to introduce Dr. Kanaya. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alka Kanaya, a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, and also founding principal investigator of the MASALA Study. Which is the first major study examining why South Asian Americans face disproportionately high rates of diabetes and heart disease. Her groundbreaking research has revealed that traditional screening tools often miss the unique metabolic risks carried by South Asians, including higher levels of visceral fat and related biomarkers. Dr. Kanaya is also leading innovative solutions through community-based lifestyle interventions and restorative yoga programs aimed at improving health outcomes in the South Asian community. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Kanaya.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here in such a nice, beautiful, and intimate setting. I hope what I show you today inspires you to think about the future and how we are going to be treating diabetes as well as preventing diabetes in the future. So as you know, 1 out of 4 human beings has South Asian ancestry. Just let that hit you. That's 25% of the world's population. And of course, most of them live in the South Asian subcontinent, but the US has the largest part of the diaspora with over 5.5 million people from South Asia. And then you can see that, UAE and other areas are also growing in size. Yet there are very few studies that are longitudinal that really help us understand the mechanisms why people develop heart disease and diabetes at younger ages, more aggressive disease, and often more complications of their disease. So with that background, we got funding to start the MASALA study in 2010. This is year 15, 16 of the study. It stands for Mediators of Atherosclerosis in South Asians Living in America. And we designed it to include South Asian Americans who are between age 40 and 84 years old. They could not already have cardiovascular disease. So if they had had any kind of stents or imaging of their heart or arteries, they were not eligible. So if anything, MASALA is looking at the rosiest picture because they were excluded if they already had a heart attack or stroke to be in the study. We currently have 3 sites for MASALA, UCSF, where I am, and then Northwestern in Chicago, and New York University is our newest site. This is the only longitudinal cohort of US South Asians to date. And we purposely designed MASALA to be parallel in methods to an ongoing study called the Multi-Ethnic Study of Atherosclerosis, MESA. And why this is important is MESA was already running and had included 4 different US population groups. And I'm showing you The same color theme will be shown in future slides when I compare our South Asians in Masala to whites, Black Americans, Hispanic, and Chinese. It was really important to do this study, not only because this linkage is important so we can cross-compare valid measures across these two studies, the same inclusion criteria, the same assays, the same reading centers, but also it was the only way we could get the study funded, because I tried 5 times to get a South Asian only cohort funded and no dice. But having the leverage of, oh, we're going to compare to other US population groups was exciting and, more important for reviewers. So what have we done in Masala over the last 15 years? We have expanded our cohort. We started with original 906. We got some philanthropy funding to increase the size in our second exam. And we recently doubled the size of our cohort with new grant funding. So now the current size of Masala is over 2,300 South Asians. We have seen the original cohort 3 times, so it's a longitudinal study. It's not a hello, goodbye, one-time study that exists all around the world. This is actually seeing people every 5 years, but getting their data every single year, which requires a lot of follow-up and annual commitment to be in the study. Wave 1 consisted of mostly Indian immigrants. About 85% of the population were Indian immigrants. Wave 2, wave B over here, is exclusively Pakistani and Bangladeshi. And we did this on purpose because we've seen data from the UK and Canada and from those regions in South Asia that there are differences in the risk profile. And it's very important to know where are the risks, where are the disparities, what can we do to improve health. So, that's hard to see on this white background, but the people in our study, 42% were born in India, 25% in Pakistan, 26% in Bangladesh, and then you can see there's other representation. Only 2% were born in the United States, and that's because of the age of inclusion, 40 to 84. So people had immigrated here in the 60s and 70s and started having kids who were old enough to participate. So we can't really say much about the second generation of Indians, but we're building on our study now and starting a new second generation study. So what have we found in terms of the diabetes prevalence? I'm showing you the original cohort because these are the published data from the mostly Indian cohorts that we had started in 2010. The first bar graph shows you in red that the overall prevalence of diabetes was 25%. Pre-diabetes, about 1/3. And you can see for men and women, there's a big difference. Men have a lot more diabetes than women, and this is true around the world in any population. There's a gender difference of diabetes. And then when we compare to MESA, again, our sister study, designed to be comparable, this is what we see. Orange is the color for the South Asians, and then the other 4 groups in MESA are in the different colors. And this is unadjusted crude prevalence rates. You'll say, why is it not 26? You're showing me 26 on the left. That's because MESA did not do the 2-hour glucose tolerance test that we did in Masala. So we removed that test when we compared to MESA to, again, compare apples to apples. So 21% of South Asians had diabetes compared to 14% Hispanic, 13% Black. When we adjusted for the kitchen sink, by this I mean statistical adjustment for things like socioeconomic status, exercise, body mass index, waist circumference, HDL, hypertension, metabolic risk factors, we only exaggerated the difference between the groups, right? So this is the issue. There's a lot of diabetes in South Asians. We know that, and we confirm that in Masala. South Asians are not a monolith, and that's why I started out by saying that we needed more data in other South Asian groups, and this is what we've just accomplished, completing that second wave B of Pakistani and Bangladeshi inclusion, and look at the difference between these 3 South Asian American immigrant groups. Bangladeshis, 1 out of 2 Bangladeshi adults have diabetes. That is on the order of what you see in Pima Indians in the United States and other Native American groups. 42% of Pakistanis have diabetes compared to 24% of Indians. So I already showed you the Indians in the original study compared to the US groups are high risk, but look at this. So we have our work cut out to really, do more to prevent disease and poor outcomes in groups that are most affected. So this is why we're here. Why and how do we prevent this? And this is a kind of just a simplistic way of thinking about the multi levels of risk factors that cause diabetes and what's modifiable and what's not. So, starting at the bottom, there are structural and environmental factors. Where you live, where you work, where you play matters. The green space matters, the air pollution matters, the water pollution matters, all of that. Socioeconomic, structural factors matter. They are modifiable, but it takes major policy changes to modify those. Health behaviors, that's the individual level factors. Diet, exercise, sleep, what you're using in terms of substances, stress levels, all that. Then there is other biological factors such as ectopic fat, where your fat is stored in your body and the amount of insulin resistance you have. Believe it or not, that is modifiable too. Then there's beta cell dysfunction. This is your pancreas. The beta cells are the insulin producing cells that you were born with. That is genetically determined, but also environmentally shaped and modifiable. Then there's in utero factors, factors of the fetal environment and the mother's health and what the mother was exposed to and what that does in terms of priming the fetus to later go on to develop hypertension, diabetes, obesity. And lastly is the genetic factors, not modifiable, unfortunately, but everything else is modifiable. So I'm going to show you some of our most recent data, just touching on some of these factors where we are. So Dr. Meghna Gadgil in the back is my long-term collaborator, and she led our dietary studies within MASALA. For diet measurement, it's very difficult because imagine the differences in diet from north to south to east to west in India. How do you measure that in a study that can be reproducible and done over and over again? We used a food frequency questionnaire that has 164 items. It was developed in South Asians in Canada. And this was asking people all sorts of different food intake, including US, mixed Western foods. And Dr. Gadgil did this analysis looking at what dietary patterns people eat. People eat in patterns. They don't eat in terms of macronutrients, right? We don't think of how much protein are you eating today, or it's like, what kind of diet do you eat? And these are the three predominant dietary patterns in our original Masala population of mostly Indians. One was a pattern rich in animal protein. It included a lot of Western foods like alcohol, coffee, eggs, fish, pasta, pizza, etc. The second was a mostly vegetarian, traditional South Asian diet that was rich in fried snacks, sweets, and high-fat dairy products. You can read those and you can see the beautiful pictures. We're all very familiar with these foods. And then the third is a more prudent vegetarian style diet, which is rich in fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains. And what she found in this study was that eating more of this animal protein predominant diet was associated with higher levels of total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, waist circumference, and weight, and also more fat in the liver. Eating that predominantly South Asian traditional vegetarian diet was associated with insulin resistance as well as low HDL cholesterol, what was felt to be at the time a protective cholesterol. And then the diet on the right was the healthier diet with lower rates of hypertension and metabolic syndrome. So we dug a little deeper because 40% of the people in Masala were lifelong vegetarians. We really wanted to look at this, plant-based diet and what's going on. So Dr. Bhupita Raju, who's at the Harvard School of Public Health, led this analysis from our data, where she categorized healthy plant-based foods on the left, whole grains, fresh fruits, and less healthy. We won't call them unhealthy, we'll call them less healthy. Refined grains, fruit juices, potatoes, so the starchy and more high glycemic foods there. And this is what she found. And when you correlate how many healthy plant-based foods you're eating and how many less healthy, showing the healthy in the green bubbles, we found that people eating a diet that was high in healthy plant-based foods had lower odds of fatty liver, lower obesity and overweight, and lower incidence of developing diabetes within 5 years. Whereas people eating a diet that had more of the less healthy plant-based foods, you could see there's no strong association because everything crosses that line of unity, but there is kind of a little bit of an inkling of higher incidence of diabetes. So we do have some good data showing that we need to go beyond just asking people what type of diet they eat. And then if you see someone has a vegetarian diet, okay, great, let's move on. No, we actually need to dig a little deeper and really try to work with our our nutrition colleagues as well as health coaches to modify the diets. So let's talk about body composition. So in Masala, we categorize people based on their BMI. This is what doctors do in the office. So we, of course, use the poor proxy measure of BMI. But we used an Asian cut point for this, which not everybody is using clinically, but should be. So a normal BMI for Asians is less than 23. For overweight is 23 to 27.4, and obese is 27.5 or higher. And you can see in the orange is Masala, and about 25% of the cohort was in that normal BMI range. And there's a big spread with the Chinese having, almost half were in the normal BMI, and very few of the Hispanic, less than 20%, were normal. And why I want to focus on that normal weight group is because that is the group that is currently not indicated to undergo diabetes screening per the US guidelines for diabetes. Thank you so much. So we wanted to look at that group of normal weight individuals shown in the left panel. And what I'm showing in red dots are people with metabolic abnormalities. So that's high glucose, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, or low HDL. And you can see the South Asian group is that last set of bubbles, that almost 50% of the South Asians in the normal weight group have metabolic abnormalities. It does exist in all the other groups as well, but it's just lower in risk. So if we're using BMI and we're stuck with using BMI in the clinical sense because there is no other easy measure that can be done on the go every time you meet, what may be a relatively healthy BMI for South Asians? So using the same data, if we use the benchmark of whites at a BMI of 25, what the prevalence of metabolic abnormalities is, our BMI equivalent is 19.6. That is really low, okay? And that is something very hard for, physicians, clinicians to say, you need to get your BMI under 19.6. But what this all tells me is that using BMI for screening for diabetes is insane because we miss most people who may have diabetes, and we miss the period of time early in diabetes where you can actually make a difference and have diabetes go into remission. So we should not be using BMI for screening. We are working hard to try to change these guidelines in the US. So what is going on with this low BMI in South Asians having metabolic abnormalities? And so we use CT scans in Masala, and we use the same kind of methodology as MESA to measure where fat is stored. Fat around the heart, fat in the muscle, fat in the liver, and fat in the visceral adipose tissue. And what we found comparing, again, our South Asians in orange to the MESA groups is that unfortunately South Asians do have a predisposition to storing fat in the wrong areas. So up top is liver fat attenuation, which is an inverse sign. So if you have low hepatic attenuation, you have a lot of fat in the liver. So South Asians predominantly had higher fatty liver compared to the other groups, more visceral fat, and more fat in the muscle compared to the other groups, and also low lean muscle mass. So that's the other side of the coin. Not only is it about where you put fat, which is genetically determined, but also where there is less lean muscle mass, and that's the engine to help utilize glucose in the bloodstream. So having low muscle mass is another major problem. So we looked at people without diabetes in Masala to understand what is going on, why is there this high risk? And what we found is in the orange, compared to the MESA groups across the ages that we have in MASALA, that there's a higher level of insulin resistance. And this is, we've heard about this since the 1980s. We've heard about this from studies in the UK. But what we have not heard about is that there's lower beta cell function starting actually very early in life. And so in MASALA, all of these people don't have diabetes, and they have lower beta cell function compared to all 4 groups in MESA. So that is, if you have poor beta cell function and the beta cell is not able to produce the insulin you need to overcome insulin resistance, you're going to end up with diabetes faster. So we've gone further in our understanding of type 2 diabetes. When I was in medical school in 1990, we knew there were 2 main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2, and then there were these uncommon types, MODY, LADA. Now we know a lot more about type 2 diabetes. That's the predominant form of diabetes in the world. About 90% of diabetes is type 2, but we can actually now look at subtypes of type 2, talk about precision medicine, right? And so we can use clinical factors to decide and figure out where people fall in terms of the subtype of type 2 diabetes. And this is work that started in the late 2018. So we did this with our MASALA and MESA people with diabetes, and we clustered their data, and we found 5 main clusters. There's an older age at onset form of diabetes in blue. Then the second cluster was a severe insulin deficiency type, which manifested with high levels of glucose. And then the third was a severe obesity with insulin resistance. And then there was a fourth, less common one, where people in type 2 diabetes were already using insulin, had burnt out their pancreas, and then a very rare, very young age at onset type. And here's the 5 groups, again, MESA groups, and then MASALA over here. I'll have you look at the South Asians and how different the South Asians are from the Chinese in MESA in terms of subtype. I told you the most common subtype across all groups was the older age at onset diabetes. It's the least common here in South Asians. We have the insulin deficient subtype of diabetes, and I showed you again back in that chart with that low level of pancreatic beta cell function. That is the predominant subtype of type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance is actually not that common, and we need to move away from our thinking of all insulin resistance being the paradigm of diabetes. It is more common in whites and in Blacks and Latinos, but again, this insulin secretion problem is predominant. And why is that important? Turns out that you have very different outcomes based on the subtype of type 2 diabetes. People in the insulin deficient, that orange where South Asians fall, they have the highest incidence of developing atherosclerosis with coronary artery calcium, higher than all of these other types. So we should be managing these people clinically with the newest agents that prevent atherosclerosis and prevent heart disease. We shouldn't be using older agents that don't work as well, such as metformin and the sulfonylureas. Older age at onset, 29% had this. This is the least aggressive form of diabetes that people get after like age 70. We should leave these people alone. They are not going to end up with, no, we really should. We shouldn't be preventing diabetes in the 70-year-olds. You're wasting resources, honestly, because they are not going to end up having kidney disease, heart disease, retinal disease, and we need to not aggressively treat them because you may cause more harm by causing people to have low blood sugar, fall, fracture, die. So we need to let these people go, let them live. And then there's that insulin resistance, and I'm putting this at the bottom because it's third most common, really trying to drive this home. It's not insulin resistance. They don't have any higher rates of kidney disease or atherosclerosis, at least in the first 5 to 10 years of follow-up. And these people can be treated more with weight loss and other remedies to help their insulin resistance. I want to show you brand new data that just came out of India last week from my friend Venkat Narayan, who runs the Chennai and New Delhi CARS cohort. And what they did is the same type of subtyping, like I've just been showing you. It's been done in populations around the world. But they did this not only for people with diabetes, they did this for people with pre-diabetes. And so they had 14,000 patients in CARS, and what they did is they looked at who went on to die. And you can see the subtypes of type 2 diabetes. They had the severe insulin deficient subtype, 23%, mild insulin deficient, 54%, and then the insulin resistant subtype. And in the pre-diabetes group, it was insulin deficient or insulin resistant. And what they found was, in terms of who died more often or the higher risk of dying of any cause or of cardiovascular disease, was highest in the severely insulin deficient subtype. In fact, they had 18 years excess years of life lost in insulin deficiency subtypes. That goes back to what we found with more atherosclerosis in that subtype. So what are we doing? Why are we only focused on the obesity issue? We've got a real problem with the insulin deficiency subtype. And in genetic studies that have been done, mostly using data that comes from the UK, which is higher in Bangladeshis and Pakistani, very few Indians, there is a beta cell problem that leads to diabetes, as well as this ectopic fat distribution problem that leads to diabetes. So there's a genetic basis of both of these things. I'm going to stop with the final slide here. So what are we learning in MASALA in terms of diabetes? I think what we've learned is changing the paradigm of how we think about diabetes, with it being more of a beta cell impairment problem. The diabetes prevention tools we have, weight loss and exercise, they're great, but may not be right for preventing diabetes that is insulin deficient. We may need to rethink how we're doing prevention to have the best effect. And we may have a longer time to intervene on this type of diabetes, and we will get bigger benefits in cardiovascular disease prevention. It is so important that we have representation of South Asians in studies, and this is a problem around the world. We just don't have people volunteering to be in long-term studies. We need to disaggregate data, otherwise we lose the fact that there's big differences among South Asians, and we need to be able to compare across other populations to see the whole picture. So with that, I really want to thank you for your attention and our funders. These are the team. These are my people who make things happen for MASALA. Thanks so much. Do I have time for a question?
Thank you so much. We can stand together maybe. We can answer some questions. So anyways, thank you so much for shining light on the risk factors that we have. And this was some food for thought. One question that I wanted to ask, that since your research shows that diabetes is rooted in early beta cell dysfunction rather than just weight, and standard weight loss advice is not enough, how should lifestyle or dietary interventions change to specifically support beta cell function?
Yeah, no, that's a key question here, because we don't have a whole lot of data to know, because the people who've been enrolled in diabetes prevention trials that have been done around the world are mostly obese. And so we don't have data in the non-obese, normal weight persons to say, well, how do we prevent diabetes? Because you don't tell someone with a BMI of 20, go and lose weight.
Right.
So, but there are factors that matter in terms of your dietary intake, and those that cause glucose spikes, right? And so you want to have a lower glycemic load and a lower glycemic index diet. So I think diet matters. I think early changes in diet, as well as other factors that could put stress on the pancreas, will matter. This is an early kind of phase of understanding of how to prevent diabetes in this subtype. What we know about this subtype is, even though it's very common, if you add the stress of obesity or extra pounds on in those ectopic areas, that's going to push you over. So you do want to maintain a healthy weight if you have already poorly functioning beta cells.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if anybody in the audience had any questions. Here's
Yeah, I'm Dr. KRS. Yeah, I have been doing research in this particular area extensively. What is the component from the mitochondrial, from the mother to daughter, etc., versus men? Is there any way you can distinguish what the effects are?
Yeah, we're hoping to have whole genome sequencing, as well as epigenetic data in MASALA soon. We have a pending grant. We have let me tell you, we have 5 pending grants right now to keep Masala funded and do new things, kind of moving in different ways. And the molecular basis of disease is
Correct.
very important. So we're hoping we get some of that
Yeah,
funding.
I'll be glad to discuss in
Yeah,
detail.
yeah.
Another important one is the brain neural network to gut biomicrobe neural network. The communication, I have research program that I want to do, either in a university or a research lab, etc., where I want to be able to decode the communication that happens. Would that give any indication of
Sure.
when people eat, what,
Oh,
et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
And we can embed the sensors and all of that as required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an exciting area. I've seen a lot of new research starting to come out with fMRI and other MRI
Yeah.
usage
And
and
I have inventions
understanding.
in MRI also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Not in South Asians, though, but in other populations.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Just a couple of questions. One is you said that you excluded cardiovascular people with already having a heart attack or something like that. And
Yes.
is there any reason for that? And then second is, are you comparing your data with the South Asian studies that are done in India or other countries to
Yes.
just see
Yes.
what is the
Totally,
kind of a
totally.
comparison?
Great question. So the reason we excluded people with cardiovascular disease is because we wanted to be similar in methods and measures to the MESA study. And MESA had that. And the point of this study is to really understand why people develop heart disease. So if you have people who have already had heart disease, they've already started taking different medications, maybe changing their lifestyle behaviors like they should. And so you don't get that same ability to say, well, what caused their disease? So we had and that's why I want everything you hear about masala, you should think this is the rosiest scenario, that people who already had heart attacks are not included. So even with that, I mean, it's astounding to see the rates of diabetes the way it is. Second question, yes, we've done several studies comparing our masala population with the CARS cohort, because we both these studies started at the exact same time in 2010. What we found is very interesting compared to old data from the UK. That brought up like, oh my God, there's so much diabetes in South Asians living in the UK, and it was like canary in the coal mine because there was very little diabetes back home in India or Pakistan. What we're seeing is the opposite. There's more diabetes in India. There's less diabetes in the immigrants in Masala, and there's more pre-diabetes here than in India. So that is like, wow, that whole reversal has started to happen where there's now India is ground zero for the diabetes epidemic, just exploding. And that's only in 2 states, I mean, 2 cities, Chennai and Delhi. There's new data from all 28 states in India that show the prevalence of diabetes is astoundingly high, even in rural areas of India.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Thank you. Yep. Sorry. 2 more minutes?
Hi,
Okay.
very quickly. Hi, Nalini. Thank you so much. I'm Sri Srinivasan, visiting from New York. Finally, great to see
Nice
the
to
Masala
meet you.
folks here in person. We hear all the great work that's happening on the West Coast. I run a new Substack called My Pre-Diabetic Life in partnership with Arogya.
Oh, wow.
And I've been told every Indian is actually pre-diabetic to begin with. So
Yeah,
that's not that special. But your stats are so interesting. Can you just very quickly tell us 2 things? One is what is the Chinese diet that Americans have always said makes you feel lighter after you eat, all those stereotypes?
Yeah.
Is any of that true? Is that why the Chinese numbers are theoretically better? Second is the stunning stats on the Bangladeshi community and the Pakistani community.
Yeah.
How much of that is because on the economic ladder, there is a difference where when Indians came in the 60s versus the people coming now?
You're
So
right.
thank
You're
you.
right. Great questions. Wow. I'm here all day, so I'm happy to do offline and we can talk more. So the first question was Chinese diet. So MESA used a multi-ethnic dietary instrument, which wasn't great for the Chinese ethnic foods. Like our instrument for diet was South Asian specific, developed in South Asians in Canada. Their instrument had a few Chinese dishes, so I don't think, Meghna, I don't think we can really understand the Chinese diet with what they did. But my understanding overall of the data coming from China is that there's there's a mixed diet with a lot of carbs, and carbs including rice and other vegetables, but there's also a growing animal protein intake in the diet. So I can't tell you from MESA why. I don't think diet is the difference between the groups. Second question, remind me again. Bangladeshi. Oh, yes. Yes. So many differences in the Bangladeshi immigrants, Pakistani immigrants, and Indian immigrants. Actually, the decade of immigration is very different. The average decade is in the 80s for the Indians. It's in the late 90s for the Pakistani, and it's in the 2000s, post 9/11 for the Bangladeshis. Very different socioeconomic backgrounds, very different occupational backgrounds, very different diet. So looking at diet differences, Meghna has started to do this. I mean, I told you that 38% of the mostly Indians in our first wave of masala were lifelong vegetarians. 2% of Pakistani are vegetarian, and 0.6% of Bangladeshis are vegetarian. I'm not saying it's all the meat, or it's not all necessary, but there's differences, right? So we are now spending a lot of time and energy to understand the differences by structural factors, socioeconomic factors, dietary, lifestyle. I mean, people from Bangladesh are living in multi-generational households, working 2 to 3 jobs, and there's a lot of stress in that lifestyle. And so stress levels, sleep, there's going to be a lot of differences. I don't think there's genetic differences explaining this huge difference in diabetes. This is going to be social, behavioral, structural differences.
So I have one last question. So sorry. Alka, Arogya World, we do diabetes prevention through healthy living in India, and now we're bringing the programs to the US. All our stuff is science-based, all our stuff is behavior change science-based. So we are making some,
Great.
having some traction. Question for you. We go after general population level advice. Okay, we go to the community, we go to schools, we go to workplaces. We are in the community telling people, eat right, exercise, and avoid tobacco. That's what we do.
Great.
Okay, is that wrong? Because now
No.
you have subtypes,
Yeah.
and you're telling me South Asians don't even respond to
Yeah.
exercise and diet
Yeah.
to the same extent as
They don't.
other Americans.
They don't.
So, and you said the jury is out,
The jury is out.
basically,
yeah.
on
Yeah.
whether exercise and that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we've spent 15 years. We were formed in the same year
No.
as the start of Masala. 15 years
yeah,
teaching
see,
people to eat right and exercise.
and that's why we need data like Masala to really understand what are we doing. Are we really doing anything that's benefit? Because the Indian Diabetes Prevention Program actually found only half the benefit of lifestyle to the diabetes prevention program in the US and Finland and Mexico. So there was a signal there that it's not working in Indians already, right, with the Indian diabetes, and we're just showing why here. So
sorry, on that point,
yeah.
My take home was, hey, the pressure on Indians, the genetic pressure and the other, things are non-modifiable. You gave us 8 factors that are modifiable. But there's so much pressure on us that we have to actually run
Right.
to stand in place.
Right.
We have to do more exercise.
Yes.
More
Yes, exactly.
diet.
Yeah, and I think the thing is it has to start earlier in life because the beta cells are burning out. They're low at birth, and they are so any additional stress that you give by the food you eat, the non-exercise. I mean, exercise is low-hanging fruit, okay? Starting exercise in childhood and diet and other lifestyle behaviors so that the pancreas, the beta cell function doesn't collapse. That's where we need to go is don't prevent diabetes in the 60, 70-year-olds. Move to the 10, 15, 20-year-olds.
Last question. Uh, last question. Dinesh Beradipur from Saratoga. Very, very interesting talk.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So one question is, so the people who are enrolled in this study, right, when you told them, hey, this is what we have found about you,
Yeah.
did they, over the course of time, make changes in their lifestyle?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So we've remeasured diet, we've remeasured physical activity with questionnaires over time. There has been some change, actually. There has been positive changes. And that's good if people are learning the lessons. I know that the data from the Bay Area has also improved because of programs like Anita's and South Asian Heart Center that's reaching many more South Asians, where people are getting interested and learning and, and improving lifestyle habits. So, 10, 20 years ago, the rates of South Asian heart disease in the Bay Area were higher than they are now. So I do think that there is change happening, and it's going to take a lot of effort and dissemination of this. And we're in a very wealthy part of the United States. So if people don't hear the message here, they're not going to hear it anywhere. So let's use our microphones all around the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Kanaya. Who here is completely floored by this conversation? Just like, yeah. Okay, what are we going to do, right? Okay, well, don't let this get you down. Please, please, please don't let this get you down. We know from science that these diseases are still very largely preventable, treatable, and reversible with lifestyle changes. And lucky us, we are in an area that we have a very rich array of experts here in the Bay Area who are taking very bold steps to combat metabolic diseases among South Asians. So can I ask our panelists to please come up? Yeah, I'll sit too. I think there's, yep. Is it on? Okay. So I wanted to introduce three amazing speakers. One is Dr. Ashwini Wagle. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ashwini Wagle. She's a registered dietitian, educator, professor, and the department chairperson for the Department of Nutrition, Food Science, and Packaging at San Jose State University. She is the author of Carbohydrate Counting, Traditional South Asian Food Lists for Management and Prevention of Diabetes Mellitus. Yes. All right. And she's a pioneering resource that helps South Asian families manage diabetes while preserving their cultural food traditions. So welcome, Dr. Wagle. Okay. To my side here is Anita Sathe, a passionate advocate for improving diabetes and metabolic health outcomes in the South Asian community. She's a founding member of the health coaching program with the South Asian Heart Center and has been a full-time volunteer with the center for 20 years. Yes. She brings deep insight into the unique challenges South Asians face and is committed to helping translate the latest research into practical, culturally relevant strategies for patients and families. Interesting, Dr. Wagle and Ms. Sathe were both featured in The Brown Heart, a documentary highlighting the impact of heart disease in South Asians. And Dr. Kanaya. And Dr. Kanaya, yep. Yes, okay. And last but not least, we have Dr. Rajesh Dash. So he's a well-known cardiologist and director of the Stanford South Asian Translational Heart Initiative, or SATHI. His work focuses on the intersection of heart disease and diabetes in South Asians, with a particular expertise in why cardiovascular disease occurs earlier and more aggressively in this population. Dr. Dash's research spans advanced imaging, biomarkers, and precision approaches to cardiovascular prevention. Thank you so much, Dr. Dash. Okay, so I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to jump into it. And I think that I need to make it quick because I know everybody has a lot of questions here. So everybody has 2 minutes to answer each question. So Dr. Wagle, what is the number one nutrition question that your South Asian patients with diabetes ask you, and what advice do you give them?
Okay. This is working. Well, thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to be quick here and get into it. I get a lot of questions. Anytime anyone finds out that I'm a dietitian and an educator, that, the questions come. So the most common question I get is, do I have to stop eating rice or roti? I have questions like, do I have to stop eating everything white? And usually I say, if it is white bread, maybe move, but otherwise, pretty much eat everything. My focus when I answer that question is, look at the portion size, look at the quality of the food, and look at your plate and make sure it's balancing. Because like Dr. Kanaya said, we eat in clusters regardless. And if you look at what you eat in a day, usually there's a cluster for the day or usually your meal. So for example, I'll take, I love dosas, but then dosas come with masala dosa, the potato sabzi, the sambar, and the chutney. Pretty much high carbs right there, and it becomes low in protein. So usually my focus is look at the plate, try to balance it, make the starch intentional, and stick to one starch, and then bring in the protein. Make sure there's a protein source, at least quarter of your plate, and then bring in all the non-starchy vegetables. Add volume to your plate. So that gives you the glycemic predictability. It improves your, it balances the plate overall, nutrient-wise. So that's my
Okay.
quick answer.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Sathe. So we know from the MASALA study that Indians that are at high risk of developing diabetes at alarmingly high numbers. So how does the South Asian Heart Center lead them to change behaviors and to prevent diabetes?
We just now learned a lot of things from Masala Study. I mean, new things, I should say. So, South Asian Heart Center was formed 20 years back, in response to the epidemic of heart disease amongst South Asians. We had launched our flagship Aim to Prevent program, through which we were already working with people on the lifestyle. As there is a lot of research on the lifestyle, where one of the German studies, longitudinal studies, suggests that 93% of the diabetes and 81% of the heart disease can be prevented with having a good lifestyle. So we had been working with people around the time frame of 2015, along with the Masala study findings. When we looked at our own data, by then 5,000 people have gone through our one-year program. When we looked at our own data, we found that 40+%, around 43% of the people were in the pre-diabetes zone, and some of them are also actually had a diagnosis of diabetes. So when we saw that, so along with the Masala study findings, our findings were pretty similar. Then we looked into launching the Stop Diabetes program for South Asians. And in 2016, we launched our Stop Diabetes program. So initially, that is also a one-year program, like Aim to Prevent. But what is the difference is there, people get 24 group classes. And then in addition to that, we also offer coaching to them, just like we offer for our Aim to Prevent program. So that's the distinguishing factor in our Stop Diabetes program versus standard Stop Diabetes program outside. Initially, it was all in-person classes and over the phone or Zoom coaching sessions. But later on, as years progressed, we made it all telehealth, and that really helped us. Because when COVID came, we were already prepared to do our programs. And because of the telehealth nature of the program, now anybody, not just people in Bay Area, but anybody in United States or any other country can join our programs. And we do have presence from India and few participants from Australia and South Africa. They found us online and joined the programs. So what we did was we took CDC curriculum. Most of our clientele, as Dr. Kanaya said, people in Bay Area are, very well-read, well-educated. So we took CDC curriculum and we sort of culturally adapted it to fit into for our clientele. So these group sessions are really working well, but through coaching, people are able to make sustainable lifestyle changes.
So now you're doing more coaching as a virtual coaching.
Coaching was always virtual,
Yeah.
but otherwise the diabetes workshops were in person.
Yeah.
So we are continuing with that.
That's amazing. Yeah, in my medical center, from the beginning of the pandemic to the end of the pandemic, this is children. I take care of children less than 18. The rate of type 2 diabetes quadrupled from the beginning to the end. Yeah. So yeah, it's really, really amazing that you're doing that. Thank you so much. Dr. Dash, what prompted you to start the Sathe program and what is its purpose?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is an incredible event and great to see everyone here. So, actually, the inspiration, so I've been on faculty at Stanford for, this is my 17th year there. And years 2 and 3, I started to get this stream of South Asian patients coming to me who had already been seen at the South Asian Heart Center. and they had loved the advice on the lifestyle and the diet and that counseling to get them going, but a lot of them had disease already. A lot of them already, or they had very strong early disease in their family. And what I realized was that there were no resources, not just here in the Bay Area, in the country, for specialist care for South Asians. So in 2014, I founded the country's first cardiology clinic dedicated to South Asian heart disease prevention. Now, the thing I was noticing in our data was that the disease starts a lot earlier. In fact, work that my colleague Dr. Palaniappan published with the South Asian Heart Center years ago showed that over half of all the heart attacks in South Asians happen under the age of 50. So if you only study a population, or if you only treat a population that's over 40, the cat's already out of the bag in a lot of those patients. And in fact, in our clinic, we see patients from age 18 to 60, so younger South Asians, and we uncover tremendous amounts of existing cardiovascular disease in this population. And the one thing I would say is both inspiring and fascinating about the MASALA results that Dr. Kanaya presented is that our work somewhat contradicts it, but when you think about it, it actually complements it. So insulin resistance is of epidemic proportions in our population, but it's substantially younger than the population in MASALA. And what I would suggest is that the insulin resistance essentially burns out those beta cells, and they get beta cell dysfunction later in life, and they lead to much earlier than other populations. But we uncover that. We do a 2-hour glucose tolerance test with insulin at 4 time points for every patient. And Manjari knows about this protocol very well. She's very familiar. But what we uncover is that 72% of our patients have moderate to severe insulin resistance, and our average age is 40 years old. Median age is around 41. So we are seeing a ton of insulin resistance, but in those patients who do have poor insulin resistance, absolutely, they are the ones that are developing diabetes. And if we had caught them maybe 10 years earlier, we might have seen them at a very high insulin release level, we think. So we're uncovering that risk factor, inflammatory markers that are very abnormal. And the truth is with cardiovascular disease, it's not like cancer. It's not like you have one mutation and you get a tumor and you have cancer. Cardiovascular disease is a multitude of risk factors, and cardiovascular phase 3 trials are 14,000 patients because it takes that many to see an effect. So it's not the same for every patient. So precision prevention requires looking at all of these different categories and identifying who you are as an individual. What do you need to reduce your individual risk? And so we assess that and tailor your program. And at 6 months, about 90% of our patients reclassify their risk downward, which is kind of
amazing.
What we're trying to do. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I remember reading a study just in children, you know, that by age 3, fatty streaks are seen in the descending aorta. By age 10, it's seen in the coronary arteries. So that foundation is already laid so early in life. And that's in, you know, the general population. That's not specific to South Asians. So I'm kind of curious to know if there's anything going on studying that. Okay. So, Dr. Wagle, can you tell us more about carb counting and the utility of that?
So, in general, if you're looking at a patient with diabetes, you know, carbohydrates are the macronutrients that actually affect the postprandial glucose, right? So when you're looking at counseling, especially anyone with diabetes, carbohydrate counting is an important tool for counseling. What you do is with carbohydrate counting, you get the consistency you see a consistency of carb intake across a period of time. It gives you the flexibility of choices, right? So you're not stuck to just one starch or one carbohydrate, but as long as you know the portion size, you can choose a variety of foods. And then that brings the glucose, control also. So with carbohydrate counting, what I realized was that when I was a dietitian, or even before, when I was in academia, I realized that the standard tools, the nutrition education tools in this country from the American Diabetes Association or the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, they have the tools, but they don't have those resources do not have ethnic foods. Those are missing. Like Dr. Kanaya said, the MESA study, barely any Chinese, maybe 5 Chinese foods. If you look at the standard, food exchange list, very few ethnic foods. There might be 5 Chinese. There was not even 1 Indian food in there, or South Asian food, right? So that brought me to my side where I thought I could contribute. And with the research that we are doing at San Jose State with my graduate students, etc., now we have the carbohydrate counting resource for South Asians specifically, and that is the book I showed earlier. And that's a comprehensive list of South Asian. So it has the foods from India, it has the foods from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So we have tried to be inclusive of all those ethnicities. What that has done is, with the hopes that if not just folks with diabetes, if South Asians, if we can catch them earlier, right? Because believe me, I've done multiple tabling events, booths. Dr. Kanaya and I did, I think twice, we've done a series of workshops and talks across the Bay Area. We would get the older folks, but we wouldn't get the younger ones. I have done tabling events with South Asian Heart Center where we've done, and these young engineers and 30-year-olds, or they laugh because at 30 or 28, you are invincible. Right? You shouldn't be. Diabetes and heart disease is not even in your realm of thought that's. But 5 years later, that becomes a reality, right? So for me, these tools we are hoping that they don't just bring behavior modification, as if you are being guided by your practitioner, whether it's a registered dietitian or whether it's a certified diabetes educator. It gives the client the choices of foods so that they can monitor their portion size, so they can adhere to their diet, which makes it more sustainable for them because they are not moving to a different diet. And also it brings in behavior modification, because that is how behavior modification comes. It's not your practitioner telling you to stop eating rice or stop eating roti, right?
I wonder why that doesn't work when I tell them just stop.
So that, but one of the biggest motivators for me to do this has been the fact that it actually improves the cultural competence for practitioners. Not every dietitian can be South Asian, right? So it improves the confidence and the competence for the practitioner to say, hey, let's look at this book, or let's look at this tool. And there's multiple tools out there. And at this point, it's not just for diabetes. I have free open access resources that are available for chronic kidney disease, for diabetes, for not just South Asians, we have for Filipinos. And in the next year and a half, we will come out for the Arabic tool. We are coming out with the Latino and Latinx population, and then also for the Chinese and Vietnamese, which is very complex. So it's taking us time. So it improves cultural competence. So that's where my area has come in, and that's the focus on carb counting.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, Dr. Sathe,
No,
Ms.
Anita.
Sathe, sorry. No.
Just call me Anita.
What are you seeing in the South Asian Heart Center?
In terms of
What results? What kind of results are you seeing?
Okay.
Yes.
So just I'm going to touch on something that I forgot to say in the previous question, that we started in 2016. For last 4 years, our program has full plus CDC recognition. We are cited on their website. So what does CDC look at? If we look at that, then we can compare our results. So CDC is looking for few things. One is the engagement, participant engagement through 1 year. And in terms of outcomes, it's looking at 5%, at least 5% weight loss. It's looking at least 150 minutes of exercise and reducing A1C by 0.2 reduction in A1C numbers. So when we look at our own data, like after you asked me, then I found out the numbers. When we looked at our own data, we see that we have 80% engagement in our cohort. So at month 4, it is 100%. At month 7, it is 100%. And at month 12, it's 80%.
Okay.
So we have a good engagement in our cohort. It's also, and one more thing is, when we work with people, it's not just that 1 year. We always follow up our participants, all the participants, every year thereafter from our side. So just like they have a annual physician's visit, this is their annual lifestyle visit to see how they are doing compared to when they were enrolled in the program. And sometimes through these annual yearly calls, sometimes if some things are not working out, they rejoin the program because they realize that, okay, I was doing all of that and now I'm not doing some of it. So we have 80% engagement. Then next is the weight loss. So we are seeing 63% of the people lose more than 5% of the weight, compared to 48% as a CDC average. And by the way, CDC requirement for engagement is just 30%. That's what they are expecting, but we have 80%. And then for the A1C, 25% of the population sees the good A1C changes compared to 2%, which is a CDC data. So I think we are doing significantly well in that area. And we just wish that more and more people will join the program and take, that is available to them.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So Dr. Dash, how many South Asian heart patients do you serve in your Sathe clinic? And I know that you touched on this a little bit before, but what are the unique risk factors leading to the high prevalence in South Asian populations?
Yeah, so we're not a high volume clinic. We're kind of a high touch clinic, but we have now over 5,000 patients that we've seen over the last almost 12 years now. And it is a 6-month program that transitions to a long-term program. So why does it do that? Well, what we can identify initially on day 0 with our labs and our intake is who you are as that individual. What are your risk factors? And when I think about the risk factors that drive heart disease in South Asians, there are 3 buckets. So definitely we think insulin resistance and prediabetes raises your risk of cardiovascular disease. That's not news. It's certainly not as much as diabetes does, but identifying who's insulin resistant, who's prediabetic, and then sort of instituting the right program for them. It could be weight loss or it might not be, right? And so, but then aside from that, it's inflammatory. So the big one that you're hearing a lot about in the news today is lipoprotein(a). Just a couple months ago, it became a class 1 indication for everyone to check it at least once. I think the South Asian Heart Center, and we have been checking it for a lot longer than that. And what's scary is that in this very young population, 40 years old on average, the median value of lipoprotein(a), which is genetically determined, is over 30% higher than the upper limit of normal. So normal is 30, the median value in South Asians that we see is 40. So what we know is that it can raise your risk by up to 2.5-fold to have a cardiovascular event. And we published in October last year an imminent risk model of 1-year rates of heart attack and stroke. And we've never had that before for both patients who've had heart disease and patients who have never had heart disease. It's 93% accurate in predicting your event rates in the next 12 months. The number 1 modifiable risk factor in that list of features was high blood pressure. The number 2 was lipoprotein little a. So major driver, we think, of imminent risk in South Asians. And then the third bucket is really, there's other inflammatory markers, apoprotein B and whatnot, but those are kind of the big ones. And then we do look at something like particle sizing. So not all bad cholesterol is bad, not all good cholesterol is good. And it helps us set the right targets for cholesterol reduction, right? It matters what your LDL is, but not everyone should be at the exact same level. And so we often are adjusting that. So these are things that we know are independent risk factors for heart disease, particularly in South Asians having heart disease, and that are actionable. Because we don't want to test a lot of things that we can't act upon. We want to make sure that everything we test has an action on the other side of it. And so that's how we've designed our program.
Thank you. Good work.
It's amazing.
Okay. So Ms. Sathe, other than healthy eating and getting adequate physical activity, what else do you stress for most South Asians at your center?
Our lifestyle program, we call it MEDS, but MEDS doesn't stand for medication, but MEDS stands for meditation, diet, exercise, diet, and sleep. So when we talk to our participants, we say, have you done your meds today? So it's very easy to ask question, easy to remember acronym. So I feel that based on working with people, that when people think about lifestyle change, they always think about diet and exercise. Meditation and sleep is not on their mind at all, and these are very important, like bookends in the bookshelf. So if you don't have bookends on the bookshelf, how some of the books will collapse. It's very similar. If you don't meditate and if you don't sleep, have a good sleep hygiene, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, then your lifestyle isn't going well. You're constantly trying to balance everything. So we actively work with our participants on the meditation and sleep. Sleep, I feel we live in the sleep deprived community right now because of the globalization. People are not sleeping on time. They are not paying attention to sleep hygiene. And sometimes I can share one of the conversations with a participant. At the first coaching call, the participant told me that sleep is a waste of time. There is so much to do. I need to do so much that I don't need to sleep. 3 hours is okay. I can do without it. But slowly through coaching, the participant changed and sleep became important to him, to a point where he is an executive in Google. He put up a chart in his group where every day when people come in, he not only improved himself, but he helped others to improve. Where when people come in, if they sleep more than 7 hours, then they use green pen to do the tick mark, and otherwise they use the red pen. So sleep is very important, and what we do is during our health risk assessment, initial health risk assessment, we talk about quantity of the sleep, and then when the health educator reviews the results and recommendations with them, she also looks into quality of sleep hygiene. And if she feels that there are some issues and it needs attention, then we encourage our participants to talk to their primary care physician and look into it to see if they need any other help. Now, about the meditation, again, people feel that, oh, meditation is something I'll do it when I'm old. Right now, there is so much to do. People choose to do more active things than, sitting quietly and doing meditation. If I may ask, out of this room, how many people have a daily habit of meditation? Can you raise your hands? Okay, quite a few. That's very good. But so we work actively for people to do meditation, because when you have meditation and sleep, good meditation routine, like our recommendation is 20 minutes twice a day, which I understand it's very hard to follow in a day. But believe me, they say that if you meditate, there is a Zen saying if you feel you don't have time to meditate, then meditate for a year, for an hour every day. Because when you meditate, your brain functions much better. Also, meditation and sleep address inflammation and stress. So which is, very, people don't think about it. People look at the blood test, but inflammation is also not that much overlooked.
Absolutely right. Thank you for that. And I was staring at my kids. um, okay. So, Dr. Dash, in addition to helping people with lifestyle changes, what are the various tests that you do, and what is the one test that all South Asians must undergo, and at what age?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned some of the other tests. I won't
Yeah.
sort of rehash that. LP(a) for sure you should get done. And the reason actually for LP(a) is actually for the first time ever, probably August, we'll have the first phase 3 trial of an LP(a) reducing agent reported out.
No.
And there are 3 others following it. And by next year, we'll have a drug in the market for patients. And literally like half our patients, right, will potentially be candidates for that if it gets approved for primary prevention. So we'll see. But the other test, and I think you've heard about calcium scoring. I recommend you do not get a calcium score. Maybe that might sound shocking to you, but we in our clinic believe that calcium scoring is missing a huge amount of non-calcified plaque in South Asians. Very first patient I saw in Sathe in 2014 was 44. He had atypical pain. He didn't want a cath. So I did a coronary CTA. His calcium score was 2, but he had a 99% soft plaque blockage of his LAD, which is the major coronary vessel. That same scenario has repeated itself over and over and over again every day in our clinic. The soft plaque is the dangerous plaque. The calcified plaque is the stable plaque. The calcified plaque, which you can see very easily on a CT scan, quick CT scan, is an indicator of disease. But the true risk that you have is the non-calcified plaque. So it's called a coronary CT angiogram, CCTA, not a calcium score. It comes with a calcium score, but you get the full IV contrast 3D reconstruction. I think every South Asian patient, I don't care how old you are, every South Asian patient should get one as a baseline to understand who you are and what your biomarkers show you in terms of guiding what you do next. Because CCTA, coronary CT angiogram, it increasingly so. And by the way, in the UK, you wouldn't have to worry about it. It's first line. It's before any stress testing is a coronary CTA, and it's been that way for about 8 years.
Wow.
So, sure. It doesn't matter. And so I agree, yeah, symptomatic, absolutely. With,
I think that's a really important clarification.
yeah.
Because you're telling people to go out there and get a CTA when they have symptoms.
Yeah, and I know that, and we do it all the time for no symptoms. And the reason why is that most of our patients have a family history of early disease. Some of them have a family history of early sudden death, not uncommon, and very high LP(a)s, which are associated with high soft plaque levels. So we have about a 85 to 90% insurance coverage rate in our population. If you're so inclined and your insurance doesn't cover it, there are lots of good imaging centers here in the Bay Area that will be much cheaper than Stanford, but are actually approachable in terms of getting your scan done. But if there was one thing that I could recommend every patient get, it's that. And I don't tie it to symptoms, because if you tie it to symptoms, you've got a serious problem. You don't want to wait till you have a 99% stenosis to get symptoms, to get that scan, right? More heart attacks happen from 10 and 20% blockages than from 99% blockages. Soft plaque is soft plaque no matter how bad it's blocking the vessel. So that's why it helps shape our therapy. And I think that's definitely more aggressive, more provocative than what's out there, but that's what we do in our clinic.
You are actually making my heart flutter right now. So, I mean, I know that we had talked about, you said any age, which you see 18 and above. Would you recommend it for even younger if there was a risk factor of early heart disease in like a first degree relative?
I mean, I don't see pediatric patients, so that's a harder call, but the youngest patient I've done a CT scan in was 18, and he watched his father die in his driveway. from sudden death. And
Yeah.
first thing I did was order one, and he actually had plaque. So I think that, I actually ordered it for looking for a coronary anomaly, like an anatomic issue, like he was born with, but actually ended up normal anatomy, but he had plaque. So I think that it depends on the case. I don't do very many in their teens, or actually quite a few in their 20s I've done, but it's younger than that, I'm not sure. I think it's a conversation with their parents about their family history and their risk. But if they just had metabolic risk factors, like maybe they had early onset diabetes or something like that, I might wait. But if
Yeah.
they have sudden death in their family,
Yeah.
I would not wait.
Okay. Yeah, because for us, the screening, just checking, basic cholesterol, that it starts at age 9.
Oh, that's good.
If
Okay.
there's any sort of like elevated BMI or family history, we start at age 9. So
That's great. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of where
So-
you have to look at that family history really closely.
yeah.
So
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. You should tell people what you do. Oh, well, yeah. We talked about that before, but I'm a pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician. Yeah.
We have more people in the room now.
Okay, yeah. So I am a pediatrician. I work at Kaiser Permanente. And so I have the population that I work with is kind of a lower socioeconomic group overall, larger Filipino and Indian and Hispanic populations, most of the people that I work with. So yeah, and then my kids and I, because of this, what had happened with when we had seen the rates of type 2 diabetes quadrupling from the beginning of the end of the pandemic, and I was just like, oh my God, what what is happening here? I don't understand this. And I came home and actually I was talking to my kids because I was really bummed that day, and I was just like, this is just a train wreck. And so my son said, well, maybe kids won't listen to you because you're an old doctor, but maybe maybe they'll listen to us. So that we started doing a podcast together where we started talking about these topics. And yeah, I think a lot of kids actually did start listening to them more than me, so it worked. Yeah. So okay, so what about my question for Dr. Wagle, this is my burning question that I've had for a while. So so talk to us about ghee in light of both Ayurvedic traditions and modern cardiometabolic evidence. Does it have a role? If so, in what amounts and for whom?
So that's the second most common question I get, actually, that are we supposed to let go of ghee too? So I think ghee is one of those foods or components where you have the cultural significance and respect, and where cardiometabolic evidence need to intersect, right? Like, so if you look culturally, I would say ghee is has been an important part of the South Asian culture, especially with the significance not just as food or as a flavoring or carrier for herbs, etc. There has been, Ayurveda has talked about ghee for cognitive health or postpartum health. And multiple, right? Like eye health, gastrointestinal, intestinal. So and you do have certain celebrity influencers, so like who promote 1 teaspoon of ghee in the morning or something, which I. So there is that significance, but then when you look at research, the scientific evidence-based practice, you will see that there's not as many studies. There is a need for research in that area, but from what the research and what I have read and what I have seen, ghee is a saturated fat. Well, 60% of ghee is saturated fat. There is 30% of the monounsaturated fats in there. And like what Dr. Dash said, not every bad cholesterol is bad for you, kind of. So when you look at saturated fats, ghee has the palmitic acid, which actually is known to increase the LDL cholesterol, right? But then there's other components of ghee, like the conjugated linoleic acid or the omega-3, omega-6, or the stearic acid, which actually have been known to be anti-inflammatory, right? Or have do not increase the lipid LDLs, etc. So when you look at ghee and as a practitioner, as a dietitian or a physician, my advice on ghee would be, and research has shown, multiple studies have shown that if you take minor amounts of ghee, when I'm talking about, like, I'm saying a tablespoon, so maybe around 20 grams of ghee. Research has shown that if you take around 20 grams of ghee, it does increase the ApoB levels in over a period of time in patients who have taken around between 20 to 48 grams. So you're looking at maybe like a tablespoon to maybe 3 tablespoons of ghee a day. They have, yes, which by the way, if you are following and if you are taking a spoon of ghee in the morning, that itself has covered your what I'm talking about, right? And then a dab on your roti or a spoon on your dal with rice tastes amazing, but it's very easy to make to that 48 grams or 20 grams. 20 grams is very easy to, it's not much. It's just over a tablespoon, actually. So when you look at that, it has known to increase, but the evidence does not indicate that it does increase. It increases the LDL levels marginally. So my take on this is, I will never say no to anything, but what my take is that if you are a healthy person, the rosy picture that Dr. Kanaya was taking, in the rosiest of scenarios, where you do not have high dyslipidemia, heart disease, etc., you may be able to take a teaspoon of ghee, and not see your lipid levels change remarkably. However, that I would take it with a grain of salt, pun intended. Because if you have the other markers that we are talking about, like the risk factors, etc., that we are talking about, and not just the biomarkers, I'm talking about the lifestyle then I would be very hesitant to just promote ghee.
That was a very political answer.
Well, it is a political answer.
But do you use ghee in your daily routine?
I
Is this a yes or no?
Yes, yes. Yes, absolutely yes. On the roti, yes. But but I'm a dietitian, so when I say yes, it is yes. It's a very measured yes. Yes.
No, I have a question for Ashwini.
Yes.
Actually. So I've also read that the way butter is made here and the ghee made from that butter versus how it's traditionally made in India, where with the culture.
Right.
Do you see as a dietitian there is a difference in the ghee?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the ghee, and ghee is very important in the sense the ghee made in India versus which most people don't buy ghee in India. They make it in their own kitchens, right? So the ghee made there versus the ghee made in a lab that you buy, like the Nanak ghee, which you get like whatever, I don't know how. I saw it at Costco, by the way, that huge tub. Which is scary, but yes, absolutely. The saturated fat content in that ghee is much different. Plus, it's also different with whether the ghee is made from buffalo milk versus cow's milk versus any other dairy. So yes, but it is saturated fat at the end of the day.
Can I ask you a follow-up
Yes,
question?
yes,
I think
Oh my God.
my
Now
colleague, Dr. Schneider, is going to talk about this in more detail, but
Yeah.
do you use CGMs with your patients? Do they get like continuous glucose monitors? Have you seen like
Yes.
spikes with certain kinds of carbs and roti and
Yes.
things?
Yeah.
Or what do you know? What do you see about that? I'm curious.
So I'm not a practicing dietitian, so I can just tell you whatever I see is in research. And we recently did a study with CGMs in perimenopausal women and how they were eating. Yeah, so you do. So I like the idea of using CGMs because then. And I was part of that study. I wanted to be part of that study. I was at the upper range. The cutoff was 55, so I was like, okay, let me just sneak in there. So but for my own, we did see that certain foods, and I can tell you that it was very interesting when I looked at the data that the same food, different folks have different reactions, right? So now, as a dietitian, when I did not see my own data, I'm just talking about myself. I'm not even talking about anybody else. You know, when Dr. Kanaya showed all those beautiful pictures of the namkeens in the bowls and stuff, they're there with the fried snacks. So one of the things I have actually promoted, or I have told folks, is that, you know, use fox nuts, you know, lightly roasted fox nuts. Easier said than done, because I followed that practice, and even less than half a cup of fox nuts actually spiked my blood sugar like anything. None of the food, and I'm not even pre-diabetic. My blood glucose went from 94 to 162 within 15 minutes or 20 minutes of eating the fox nuts. So believe me, no more fox nuts for me, like, because it just scared me. It came down, but that was the only food, not the rice or the roti, actually.
So, this is fascinating, and you guys will be really excited, I think, to see Mike's talk later. But we use it in our clinic a lot, and if there's a second test, I would recommend to everybody, if you have the means, to get a CGM and just do a 2-week test with a diary, and it will shock you.
It will.
In terms of that.
It does.
Everyone is different, and it will be mind-blowing, I think.
The rice and roti did not, but the fox nuts, littlest amount, just a handful that I picked up, actually, and that was the only food I ate at that time. So it is very fascinating. And I looked at the data, even though I was just a participant, but because I'm a part of the faculty and we were looking at the data, it was very interesting to see how the differences are. Yeah.
I'll just make one very short comment that we have also noticed that people, I noticed it on myself when I was wearing CGM just as a trial to see what happens, that induced stress also raises your blood sugar.
Oh, yeah.
So that's also something that people don't consider. It doesn't have to be food. It's the stress that raises the blood sugar too.
Thank you so much for all of you. I feel like stick around because I think there are a lot of questions that everybody's going to have still. So
there was a hand up there.
No, we'll come back to questions. They are here.
We are here for lunch. I'm available.
Leaving lunchtime tabletop discussion, so please stay back. We do want to end somewhat on time. We will be late, but we want to try and end. So thank you very, very much. Thank you.
okay, so after this next talk, we're going to have time for a little 5-minute break. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Christopher Gardner. No, it's okay because he's on video. It's a video. Yeah. Okay. All right. Doot 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 doot. All right, there we go. Okay, so Dr. Christopher Gardner is a professor of medicine and the director of nutritional studies. He's the director of nutritional studies at the Stanford Prevention Research Center. He spent over 2 decades studying how diet affects health. His research includes the twin studies featuring the Netflix series You Are What You Eat. Did anybody see that? It's great. And the Diet Fits trial, which showed there's no single best diet. Rather, it's the food quality that matters the most. His work focuses on including South Asian communities. Dr. Gardner, unfortunately, was unable to be with us in person today, so he recorded his thoughts. So let's see his video now. Thank you so much to Dr. Gardner. Would have loved to meet him. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then after that, please come back. So what time? So if we can come back at 10:51, and we'll be hearing from Dr. Michael Schneider. Thank you.